each went off to boarding school when you were about 13. Now, Maida makes it pretty clear in her book, The Singing Time, that she wasn't keen on young boys being sent away from home.
I'm sure there were unhappy children, but I can't really remember unhappiness of children being a major feature. I think they all got, because they were all so musically inclined and they had this special bond between them, music, that they were quite willing to put up with being a boarder and quite enjoyed it, I think. As far as Tom and I were concerned, well, as far as I was concerned, when I speak for Tom, you know, I didn't become a boarder until I was 12 or whatever. And I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't get homesick. I think the essence of enjoying being a boarder is being good at games, because then you've got things to do. You know, I think if you're not good at games, then you're not very bright, and you just mope around.
So I sort of agree that I think if you're either academically great or you're sporting great, life's wonderful. But if you're neither, maybe life is not so wonderful.
Yeah. But I can't really remember any boys at Berhamstead being unduly upset.
Let's talk about sport then. You were both pretty good at rugby.
I mean, my rugby career at Berhamstead started disastrously because on the second day of arriving at school, I went off to play rugby, full of the joys. An enormous boy fell on me and broke my collarbone, and that was the end of my rugby for the rest of that term, which was pretty pissed off about that. Meanwhile, Robin, you were doing rather well, weren't you? You were playing in the first 15 then?
I'll tell you how my rugby career started at Berhamstead, which was equally disastrous. I was picked for the under-15 rugby side, and the first match was going to be at Morton College School.
Yeah.
Excited calls home. So come and watch me play for the under-15 side. And the whole scene was set, and there I was, and I was made touch judge for the match.
Yes.
I didn't play at all.
Did Bob and Maida watching this game or hoping to watch
Well, they came to watch me.
They did.
They came to watch me,
yes.
You see. And they found that their son was almost in tears, running up and down the touch, waving a flag, saying, it doesn't matter, it's all right. So that was the start of my sort of rugby career at Berhamstead.
But Robin, you went on to captain the school team in your last year, and 15-year-old younger brother Tom was playing in the same side at scrum half.
One of the matches he watched with particular pleasure was when Robin and I both played in a game against MCS, and this was something that the Oxford Mail picked up on. Master's son helps to beat Magdalen College School. Due mainly to fine place kicking by R. Stanier, the Berhamstead captain, Berhamstead won their 7th game, keeping their unbeaten record. Mr. Stanier's younger son, Tom, also played for Berhamstead at scrum half.
Another thing you took part in at Berhamstead was something called the CCF. Can you tell us something about that?
I'm having some flashbacks about the CCF. I can hardly believe what my flashbacks are telling me. It's all so strange.
Oh, crumbs.
I really can't believe that we marched to camp.
Yeah.
3 days march. About 50 miles altogether, and the logistics to decamp and recamp and decamp and recamp and decamp and recamp on the way must have been quite extraordinary. And I can't believe it happened. And I read in the Berhamsteadian that on one march, we marched into camp with a band playing in front of us, the school band playing.
Yeah.
You know, it's difficult to believe, to be honest.
Well, we were marching, weren't we, 3 abreast on the road.
Oh, yeah.
It was a nightmare for cars behind, you know, imagine being stuck behind these people. and tried to overtake on a winding country road.
I know.
It shows. I'm sure it stopped very shortly after our time because of the cars would have made it impossible.
Can you just describe what it was? Because CCF doesn't mean much.
I suspect it's all started because of World War One, when at the start of that, the British Army was hopelessly outnumbered by the Germans, and the army afterwards panicked and said, "We mustn't do this again. We must get all these young boys trained up as soldiers just in case there's another war." I suspect that's
sort of Hitler Youth.
Yeah, yes, Hitler Youth. But it was weirdly, and the army was paying for it, you know, all our uniforms and rifles and heaven knows what, and paying for these camps.
My memory is we marched along all carrying a 303 rifle.
Yeah.
And I can remember in my last one arriving at camp with about 4 rifles on my shoulders.
Yes.
With little kids, you know, the smaller brethren amongst us.
Yes.
Were just unable to carry a heavy rifle that distance. And so the big captain of rugby had to carry all these rifles.
I discovered in the Berhamstead magazine for 1956, I think it was, I'd written a little poem about the camp, corps camp. So I'll just read you out 2 verses. I remember the band marching, as Robin said, playing not very well. I must down to the camp again, to the camp at St. Martin's Plain, and all I ask is a pair of boots and a winding country lane, and a lusty wail from the bugles flat in the blistering noonday heat, and a lusty oath when the march is done for the blistering soles of our feet. I was down to the camp again, to the clean, tough soldier's life, when the sun beats down like Hades' fire, and the nights cut through like a knife. And all I ask is a bolster stout and a palliasse not too prickly, and wistful dreams of my old school bed and a ticket home quickly.
So hang on, what age were you when you wrote that?
Oh, 16, 15 or so.
After school, you each went up to Oxford University and individually had a memorable rugby experience there involving Richard Sharp, the future captain of England. Now, Bob organised an all-stars game at Iffley Road to raise money for the school. And there on the wing is Robin Stanier. And there at fly half is Richard Sharp.
Bristling with internationals.
And me.
Yeah.
And me, I was on the wing.
Yeah.
And so did G. Windsor Lewis.
Yeah. I have one moment of glory like that in a freshman's trial when that's the first year. We call them freshmen. I don't know what they call them.
Yeah.
So anyway, and it was the team I was playing in was full of absolute stars. I mean, there were McPartlin and Dennis Evans, the 2 Welsh international and a Scottish international, 2 international guys on the wings. Richard Sharp, the fly half, who became a famous fly half, and there was me, the non-entity scrum half. And at halftime, we were 45-0 up. So they changed all the sides round and I trotted off and that was me finished.
But when there was a rugby match on that was England versus Scotland in the Stanier household, how were you expected to... Well, let me put it another way. In this house, when England play Wales, there are 4 people rooting for Wales and 1 person rooting for England. So how did it break down in your household?
Oh, it was Granny supporting Scotland and the rest of us secretly supporting England, but trying not to be too enthusiastic overtly.
Right.
Robin and I both changed sports at university. Robin decided to concentrate on running, and he ran for Oxford against Cambridge in a 4x220 relay race. Right at the beginning of that, there was nearly a rather awkward moment for him. But come the relay race, you know, you had a little problem with your shorts. Tell us about that.
Well, there's nothing else to say. I got to the start, 10 minutes to go, ran up and down, got nice and warm. I mean, in those days, we didn't do much in the way of warm up or anything like that, but we did a little bit. Took my trousers off and realised that I hadn't got any shorts on underneath. So I had to trot over to the pavilion and get shorts on, then come back in time for the race.
Well, I gave up rugby at Oxford after 1 year, and I was never good enough. And I took up hockey, and somehow or other, in my last year, I managed to fluke my way into the Oxford team that played Cambridge, and we won 3-0. And that was great, very good. And that's it. I thought that's the end of my hockey career. But I was persuaded to play a couple of club games for Berhamstead, actually, for the Berhamstead town. And somehow things took off, and I kept getting better and better. And by the end of the year, I was playing in an England trial. And I couldn't believe it. I didn't deserve to be there, but I actually played okay. With 2 minutes left to go, I got injured. And a hamstring absolutely went. And they did actually pick me for the team, the first team, but I never made it because I was injured. And one of the papers, actually, I found a clipping of it. And I'll read this to you because this is, can't resist reading it. Here it is. Injury headline, injury robs Stania of first hockey cap. Hard luck story of the season features hockey player Tom Stania, who by rights should be outside right for England against Scotland tomorrow. Having sprung from nowhere to the front rank in a few months, Stania had the coveted cap in his lap almost, but had to turn down the offer of a place in the England team because of an injury received in the final trial.
Oh, bad luck.
So there we go.
Dear.
But I was never that upset because I honestly thought I wasn't up to it. And
so what was your position in hockey?
Right wing. All I could do was run relatively fast and whack it across, but I was very unskillful compared to everyone else.
Also, on university days, you acquired a Morris 8, didn't you, at some stage in your university career? Morris 8.
Well, the Mr. Smith, remember the secretary?
Yeah.
Your secretary, Mr. Smith?
Yeah.
He was the one that said, when I was sort of vaguely looking for a car, I've got a friend who can sell you a car. So anyhow, I got this Morris 8 and I jumped into it. And the first thing that happened was my feet went through the floor because the floor of the car was made of plywood, thick plywood, but plywood. And it obviously being in storage for the duration of the war and everything else. And it was rotten. So I had to fix that to start off with. But yeah, but I took that car, up to Scotland and various things. What we have to do, I was really lucky in that I had somewhere to park it. The problem with undergraduates having cars, they have nowhere to park it.
Yeah.
So I could park it at the school.
Well, I want to develop this story a bit because I think you traded up, you bought some natty sports car or something. Anyway, you sold this car to me for 30 quid or something.
As a gift.
We thought, well, we'll take it off for a trial spin. And we left the school. I think I was driving and headed off up Magdalen Bridge. We never got across the bridge before it had broken down. And that was so it wasn't such a good car. And I think I then swapped that car, I abandoned it for another similar thing. And so I too had a car when I was a student, which was a tremendous help when it came to courting Eleanor, because her family had never had cars. They disapproved of them. And she thought it was the ultimate luxury to have a car. And she wasn't that particularly keen on going out with me until I announced that I had a car. Would you like me to pick you up? And suddenly the world turned on its axis and the rest is history. One thing led to another. And here we are celebrating the end of Tom's finals. 2 years later, we were married. And a little after that, we had 3 sons and 10 grandchildren. And that's definitely the end.